Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to poker tournament strategy. Now here's your host, Clayton Fletcher.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. My name is Clayton Fletcher, and I am your host here in fabulous Las Vegas, where the World Series of Poker has come to an end, and what an amazing summer it was. I mean, capped off, spoiler alert, I'm about to say the name of the main event winner, so if you're trying to avoid getting that information, fast forward about 15 seconds. But Michael the Grinder Mizrachi has won the main event, which is incredible. He already had won the PPC. Unbelievable storyline there. The whole thing with the Hall of Fame, I mean, we can get into that. I probably won't really want to today. But for years, they always said one per year. And it's like, well, he just did something great. Let's make it two per year. Anyway, still, Sheena winning her second consecutive ladies event and having 3 top 2 finishes in 3 years is still, to me, the most impressive accomplishment of the summer. But it's been fun. I don't want to reveal my final result because I know some people prefer not to know what's going to happen. And in a future episode, I will recap my entire summer. But today I'm going to focus on one of the last tournaments I played this summer, which was the $5,000 World Poker Tour Venetian Championship, which attracted over 1,100 players. And I have to say, this was a great move by the WPT, kind of picking up on those who may have busted out of the main, but are still in town planning to grind for another week or so. Have this big Venetian, prestigious WPT with the live stream and a television show and everything is a great way for them to kind of skim off the top of the glory of the WSOP. It was a great event, and I'm going to have a rapid-fire recount of some of the key hands I played in day one of that event later on the program. But first, I want to talk about a hand that we went over last week from my 2025 main event, and this time I want to use GTO Wizard, which is my favorite tool for improving my poker game. I think if you've been listening to recent episodes, you have heard about some key decisions where things I've learned from the Wizard have factored into my play and into some of the results and outcomes that I've been able to achieve this summer. I can honestly say with all confidence that were it not for GTO Wizard, I would not be keeping up with the ebbs and flows of poker strategy as we know it today to anywhere near the extent that I have been able to. So let's go back. You might remember from last week, my friend Ron Fetch, who had made the final table earlier in the summer of the seniors event. And he has been incredibly aggressive, very, very loose. And I had a plan to try to play back at him. So in this hand, Fetch opens under the gun to 1,100, and it folds to me in the hijack with the ace of hearts, 10 of clubs. And for exploitative reasons, I decided to 3-bet to 3,200, and Fetch made the call. So I knew that I was doing something exploitable, but let's see how far off from GTO land I actually veered in order to reach out and make this play with ace-10 offsuit. Well, pretty far. Ace-10 off is a fold in this spot. And the reason why is because the Wizard assumes that my opponent is playing a normal under the gun range. And so if you're playing against a normal opponent and that opponent makes a raise from under the gun and you are sitting there with ace-10 in the hijack, you're never supposed to 3-bet. You're always supposed to fold because his range is so much stronger than yours. I sort of threw all of that out of the window because I had a strong read that Mr. Fetch was not waiting for premium hands even under the gun to get involved. So I got involved with ace-10. But you might be interested in what is the GTO 3-betting range in this spot. And the wizard actually mixes quite a few hands. Ace-Jack off does 3-bet a good bit. Ace-10 suited almost 80% of the time. Everybody's favorite hand. Ace-5 suited 3-bets a lot. King-10 suited even gets in there. And even some Jack-9 suited. So it's not that we're always going to have a monster when we 3-bet. That's not GTO at all. We have to be balanced. But the vast majority of those 3-betting hands are going to be exactly what you might expect. Jacks, queens, kings, ace-king, stuff like that. So, yeah, I was a little bit loose here. And we knew this all along. No big surprise. Anyway, he did make the call, and we saw the flop, which was 10 of spades, 5 of hearts, 4 of clubs. Villain checks, and I bet 5K. Let's see. The solver actually does like my sizing here and actually either does half pot or 3/4 pot 88% of the time with this hand and checks the rest. So pretty cool. Right now, the way GTO Wizard is set up, we can't actually enter the appropriate stack sizes in this hand. We both had more than 100 big blinds, and in the current version of GTO Wizard, 100 is the maximum. So I have to fudge the numbers just a little bit here, but at 100 big blinds, we are really sizing up on this flop a good amount. So I'll take that as a win. Little pat on the back for me. And on the turn, it comes the 6 of hearts, and my opponent checks. I decided to bet pretty strong again, 8,500, just about half the pot, and villain shoved on me at that point, at which time I folded. So let's see what the wizard has to say about all of this. Okay, so the solver likes betting with all of the ace-10 suited combos. So every ace-10 suited, we are betting this turn card and goes for a bigger sizing, at least half the pot. So maybe we're supposed to be trying to get all in if we do have that 100 big blind stack. Maybe it would be different if the solver could help us out with 130, 140 big blinds, whatever we actually had in this scenario. But yeah, the solver likes a bet here. We only check 9% of the time for balance with ace-10 suited. Now, the reason I'm doing ace-10 suited is because that's the only hand I can actually plug into the solver, because remember, the solver wants to fold ace-10 offsuit 100% of the time. So the wizard would never have what I have in this situation, but I think we've covered pretty well the reasons why I have it and why I'm playing this hand in this situation. But let's talk about what I'm supposed to do when Ronald Fetch shoves on me. And the solver is 65-35, 65% call, 35% fold. And the way the solver distributes the calls is we're calling all the time with ace of hearts, 10 of hearts, and less than half the time with the other suited ace-10 combos. So if we think about this, we're trying to figure out why ace-10 of hearts is always a call and the others are a mix. And I think the way to do this, guys, is to look at the hearts that are on the board. Remember, it's 10-5-4 on the flop with the 5 of hearts, and then the turn is the 6 of hearts. So that's why we never want to be folding ace-10 of hearts, but we can fold the other combos that don't have the backdoor flush draw come in on 4th Street. So, yeah, I think a lot to learn from this hand. And also, by the way, I want to let you guys know they recently upgraded the software, and GTO Wizard is better than it's ever been before at helping you find the leaks in your game and get them out. And if you want to try it, I've got a great deal for you. Click the affiliate link in the description, and you'll get 24 hours unlimited access to all of GTO Wizard's features. And then when you're ready to buy, because you started off by clicking that link, you'll save 10% off your first purchase. And that link is gtowizard.com/p/TPE. All right, so a little inconclusive about what I'm supposed to do with ace-10 offsuit in that situation, but it's still fun to play with the solver and figure out exactly how far out of line I stepped. Nice to know that ace-10 suited is a very frequent 3-bet and ace jack off. So I was right there on the cusp, and I think that makes it fine because I was trying to exploit an opponent's tendency to be too aggressive. But as it turned out, he got so aggressive, I actually couldn't call him. I didn't want to put it all in with that hand that early in this tournament. So who knows? Maybe he bluffed me. Maybe he didn't. All right, but let's talk about this $5,000 WPT Venetian tournament. It was day 1C when I entered on Sunday because I had spent Saturday trying to get something going in the Lucky Sevens tournament over at the Horseshoe and really just couldn't make anything happen there. So I said, you know what, let me just get that change of scenery. Now, when I tell my friends I'm going to Vegas for the World Series of Poker, at this point, that's pretty much a misnomer. I can't tell you how much time I spent outside of the WSOP this summer and how much happier I am for it. You know, if you play at Paris or the Horseshoe, when they give you a 20-minute break, you have to walk through this crowded, smoky casino. It's dingy. It just doesn't feel like a good atmosphere. I literally can't wait to get outside and take a breath of fresh air. It's always way too cold or way too hot. It just doesn't give me the same element of relaxation that I get from playing at Venetian, or obviously my favorite place to play, the Wynn. I even played a tournament or two at Aria this summer, and really nice. You know, you can't complain about these upper level hotels. And although I know we're all happy that the WSOP is no longer off the strip at the Rio, these properties leave a lot to be desired. You know, when you finish and you're going on break at the Encore, and then you walk by the day club area on your way to go out and get some air, and there's beautiful people getting ready to do beautiful things at the beautiful Encore, it's just not the same experience when it's like break time at Caesars Entertainment. That said, there is nothing in the world like the WSOP, particularly the main event. But I'm just saying, even though I tell everybody I'm going to play the World Series of Poker, I end up playing quite a few things that have nothing to do with that brand whatsoever. Anyway, I'm at the pristine, brand new poker room at the Venetian. It's beautiful. And I sit down to play. I bought in a little bit late. And the blinds when I arrived were 300, 600 with a 600 big blind ante. And we start with 50,000 chips. So over 80 big blinds to start when I sit down. It's the very first hand after a break. And the blinds have just gone up to 300, 600. I don't really know that much about this table. I just got here. A lot of the players appear to be from foreign countries. And the only one I recognize at my table is Angelina Rich, whom I have played against before. I know her to be a very good, very skillful, knowledgeable opponent. It's easier for me to remember women that I've played against just because you don't play against that many women in general. Like probably this whole summer, I've played, 40 tournaments, and I've sat with maybe a dozen women total. It's just almost always all men at the table. So when you play with a woman, particularly a woman that has, above average skills, it's pretty memorable. And Angelina certainly fits that mold. Right on the very first hand I play, under the gun, I've got the ace of clubs, queen of clubs, and I open to 1,500 at 300, 600, 600. So ace queen suited under the gun, and it folds around to Angelina on the button. She makes the call, and then our big blind, who is clearly from a foreign country, I'm just having trouble determining which one, and he calls from the big blind. So talk about stacks. Angelina's got me covered, and the big blind does not, but it's very close. I have 50. He's got about 42 from just eyeballing his stack. So 3 to the flop, and it's a good one. 5 of clubs, 4 of clubs, deuce of hearts. So 5, 4, deuce with 2 clubs. Hero with the ace, queen of clubs, which is 2 overcards, a gut shot, and the nut flush draw. Talk about a flop on my very first hand of this 5K tournament. But out of nowhere, the big blind donk leads into both of us for 1,500. Now, I really don't know what to make of this. I guess it could be a flush draw, which I actually hope it is because obviously I have the nut flush draw. It could also just be like 3X with an open-ender. It could be maybe like some kind of combo draw, like 6-7 offsuit or 6-5 offsuit with a club. You know, could be a lot of different things, but I just didn't think that this would be his play of choice if he had a monster, right? So, for example, if he flopped a set of 4s, I think it would be a good play, but not one you see very often for him to just lead out with it. So, especially at this sizing, I thought he was trying to set the price to see another card. And so when I think I have a good sense of what my opponent wants me to do, I always make an effort to disappoint him. So I raised it up. I probably should have gone a little bigger, but I thought 4K might just get the job done. And to my surprise, Angelina, waiting in the weeds here, she 3-bets to 11,000. Guys, this is the first hand that I played in this tournament. And now the foreign guy in the big blind folds and the action's back on me. I can call 7,000 more and see another card. Maybe I'll make the nuts. I can shove, just get the whole 80 big blind stack right in there with this monster draw that I've got. Probably not a terrible play, but I do think there's a good chance that Angelina, who has seen on the flop a bet and then a raise, she ought to have at least 2 pair, if not at least a set, to be playing this way, facing this kind of heat and then 3-betting. So I kind of have to put her on a very big hand. And for that reason, I decided to just call. And now there's like 18,000 in the middle. And the turn comes the 9 of hearts, which is not what I was looking for at all. And in my head, I'm thinking I'm going to check again because Angelina probably has a monster. And I've got to figure out how much I'm willing to call. Now, if I can put myself on, for sure, 12 clean out, the flush and straight cards, then I've got to say I can call a big bet here, right? I know I only have 1 card to come, but that's a lot of the deck that can actually improve me to the nuts. And I might be able to get more money out of Angelina when she has a strong hand as well. There's also the slim possibility that she kind of went off on the flop with a hand like King Jack of clubs. I don't think it's very likely, but if that is the case, I've got her, and I've got her good. So thinking about everything in my head, I came up with a number. I said if she bets more than 16,000, I'm going to fold. And then like clockwork, almost like she could read my mind, she verbalized 16,000. So I guess now I have to call, and I did. And the river came the 5 of diamonds, leaving me with just ace high and a crushed dream. I check, she shoves, I obviously fold. We're not paying off with ace queen. And just like that, on the very first hand that I played in this tournament, I lost 60% of my stack. A brutal start to be sure, but a few hands later, I 3-bet from the small blind with the king of spades, queen of spades, versus the same player who donk led into us. I now know that he's from Argentina, kind of continuing a big trend I noticed this summer of South American players showing out in droves for this year's summer camp. Now, I haven't been here very long, but I do know that this guy plays in the style that is so common among Argentinian players. He is very, very aggressive. He doesn't seem to care very much about position in determining whether he wants to raise and re-raise and open pots and get the party started. So he is action to be sure. And in this hand, he's in the cutoff. So the button folds and I was in the small blind. I'm always going to 3-bet my king, queen of spades here. But remember, I only have 20,000 in my stack. So I don't need to 3-bet very big with such a short stack. I made it 3,800, which I think is totally fine. He had opened to 1,100, and the action folds back to my guy in position. So I'm out of position with the king of spades, queen of spades, and the flop comes king of diamonds, 9 of hearts, 8 of clubs. So king, 9, 8 rainbow. We've got top pair and a strong kicker against a guy who really likes to get after it. The action's on me, and instead of checking to him, I just bet really small. I bet 2,000, and almost immediately he raised to 6,500. And guys, this is a real inflection point for me. Like, if I somehow lose this pot, like what if King Queen is somehow no good here? This is going to be $5,000 that I lost in about 20 minutes, maybe less. It's only really been a few hands, but here we are. And he's raising, threatening my stack. He could have Jack 10. He could have 7-6. He could have some kind of pure bluff. He might play King Jack this way, King 10. I don't really know. I haven't been playing with him for that long. So I just don't know what else to do. I stuck it in. I got another 25 big blinds here, and I stuck it in, and he snap called with 9-8 offsuit. He's got bottom 2 pair. The turn is the 6 of spades, and the river that I need is another 6, giving me kings and 6s versus his 9s and 8s. But guys, if I lose that hand, I would be out of this tournament faster than I was out of any other tournament this entire summer, and it's the second biggest buy-in that I played. So very lucky to catch one of my outs there on the river. But boy, it's also pretty unlucky that the guy shows up with 9-8 somehow after he's been playing so crazy all along. At that point, I was almost back to my starting stack and feeling pretty good, and the blinds went up to 400, 800, and from second position at an 8-handed table, I raised it up with the King of Hearts, Jack of Hearts. I've got just under 50,000 in my stack. A few players to my left in the hijack is a Russian guy with a Budweiser hat on, young guy who seems to be a competent player. I've got about 60 big blinds. He 3-bets to 6K, and everybody folds back to me. I'm not sure what to do here at this stack depth, but I believe it's okay to call and see a flop, which is what I did, 4,000 more. And the flop comes Jack of Diamonds, 10 of Hearts, 5 of Spades. Hero with the King of Hearts, Jack of Hearts. So I've got top pair and backdoor straight and flush possibilities. I'm always going to check to the 3-better here. Maybe I shouldn't always, but I pretty much always do. I check, he bets 4,000, and I think this is a very easy decision. I call. I wouldn't mind picking up some equity, by the way, on the turn just in case. I call the 4K, and the turn is the 7 of diamonds, which changes nothing for me, but does bring in the 9-8 open-ender. And I already played one big pot versus 9-8 today, so I was hoping he doesn't have that, because if that hand is going to be haunting me all day, it's going to be rough. Anyway, I checked again, and this time my opponent somewhat confidently bets 10,000. So this is getting serious, guys. Remember, I start this pot with just under 50K. I decided to make the call again. I find in my life that when I check and a Russian player bets and I have top pair, I feel like I've made a lot of chips over time by calling those bets. I don't really want him to bet the river, though. The river comes the deuce of spades, and I'm checking, and in my head I'm like, please don't shove. I don't know what to do if you shove. God, I hope you don't shove. And he checks behind, and I turn over the King Jack, and my hand is good. So checking and calling made me a lot more money, I think, than any other strategy would have. When you have a very aggressive opponent, and he is in position, and he's from Russia or Argentina or Israel, just check and call. Here's another hand from that same level. Now we're full. Somebody filled in the other seat, and I'm in third position, 9-handed. I open to 1,800 at 400, 800. I've got the ace of diamonds, Jack of diamonds, and that same player, the Russian guy with the Budweiser hat, flat calls with a stack of about 80,000, and Angelina in the small blind makes the call, and she's also got me covered here. And now in the big blind is a player who recently joined our table. He is from Spain, I think, definitely Europe somewhere, and he just lost the previous hand right before this one, where he had a set of kings versus a flopped flush. And that was in the very previous hand. This guy 3-bets to 9,500. And these are the kinds of pre-flop activities you will see if you play higher stakes tournaments. Pots don't really go four-handed that often for one raise. This guy sees dead money. He is incentivized to 3-bet with a wider range. Now that I've raised and Budweiser called and Angelina called, he can maybe take this down and kind of right the ship after he just lost that big pot. It's also possible he's doing this for value with a hand like queens, kings, something like that. I decided to call. It's a little precarious now because I really don't want to see a 4-bet on my left and not closing the action. Maybe I'm better off just folding the ace-jack suited here. But this was just a situation where I felt like there could have been a tilt factor going on. I know it's a 5K, but that doesn't mean none of the players will ever go on tilt for any reason. And he might have just sensed weakness. I think ace-jack suited is a little too strong, so I just called to see the flop. But the other two opponents fold, so we are now in position, heads up, against the player who lost the previous hand. And the flop comes 9 of spades, 8 of spades, 4 of hearts. Nothing at all for me on this flop. I've got zip and pip. I've got ace high, ace jack high with nothing going on. And my opponent c-bets 6,500, leaving himself with just another 22,000 behind. So perhaps I should have folded pre-flop because now this guy is getting very close to pot commitment and I have a tough decision getting like 5-1 on a call here on this c-bet. I decided to call. I'm basically floating. I think that if he has nothing, he's going to give up. Like if he's got a hand like king, queen or whatever, he's not going to continue, I don't think, if I call him because I've called him now pre-flop and I'm calling him on the flop. I'm really supposed to have something and he's got well less than a pot-sized bet remaining in his stack. So once I call here, I think that his actions on the turn should be pretty pure. But my plan, if he checks the turn, no matter what it is I'm going to shove and probably win with ace-jack high. So that was my plan. On the flop, I made the call, and the turn is the 9 of hearts, pairing the board, and villain shoves. I don't think we can call this bet with ace-jack, so I lost a good chunk of my stack on that pot. A little while later, our Argentinian friend opens like he usually does. He makes it 1,800 from third position, and I am 2 to his left with pocket queens, and I decide to 3-bet to 6K. I don't think that should be a controversial decision. I start this hand, by the way, with about 40,000, so 50 big blinds, and then the most disciplined, most conservative player at the table. He's like maybe a 40-something black guy. He's been just really quiet. I haven't mentioned him yet because he hasn't played any hands yet. He's really been very disciplined. And now he all of a sudden says 12,200. And everybody folds it back to me. I've got queens. I hate this spot. I don't know what the heck is going on here. He's got me covered. It's always going to be aces or kings, right? Right? I don't know. I wasn't good enough to fold the queens here, but I definitely suspected that I was behind. I made the call for reasons I can't explain, and the flop came 6 high, 6 of diamonds, trey of diamonds, deuce of diamonds, and I do have that queen of diamonds. Still, if he's got aces or kings with a diamond, I'm in horrible shape now. I checked, and villain bets just 7,000. Whatever. I'm not folding for 7,000, and if I'm going to continue, I have to go all in. I think it's probably aces or kings, and I don't know why I'm still in this pot against a guy that hasn't made a move all day long. Is he really 4-betting light the first and only time he enters the pot? I think I should have folded my queens, but now that I'm here with a pair of queens and a flush draw, I'm not going anywhere. I check shove. I've got like another 28,000. He snap calls with pocket kings. They are black, so I've got some outs. But if I don't win this pot, I'm out of the tournament, guys. And I hit a lucky queen on the river. So the deck has bailed me out a few times already here on day one. Later on at the next level, 5-10, I opened ace-10 offsuit from middle position, and only the big blind, Angelina Rich, makes the call. And she does have me covered, but I've got 60,000 in my stack. So I've got ace-10 offsuit versus a competent player. I'm in position, and the flop comes ace of spades, king of diamonds, 5 of hearts. And Angelina checks to me. This is a flop that I should probably be betting most of the time with my full range, but I decided to do something a little bit sneaky here, and I checked behind. The turn comes the 6 of diamonds, and now Angelina leads out into me for 3,000, and I decide to make the call, and the river is the deuce of diamonds. So a final board of ace of spades, king of diamonds, 5 of hearts, 6 of diamonds, deuce of diamonds. So this river brings a lot of hands. It brings all the flushes plus 3, 4. So a lot of hands come in here. But Angelina does not slow down. She overbets the pot. She fires in 17,000, which is just wow. I think the pot was about 11 or 12K at that point, and I somehow got to this river with just top pair. I didn't like it. I didn't like calling. I definitely didn't like folding, but eventually I decided to fold. Good players put you to tough decisions, and that's what happened here. So a couple of other things went bad, and then at 5-10, I only had 28,000 in my stack, but I know how to play 28 big blinds. I do it all the time online, so no big deal. But the average at this point was 75,000, so that one hurts. But I did win a few small pots after that, and I had 35,000 when the blinds went up to 612. 600, 1200 with a 1200 big blind ante, and the player from the other hand who shoved on me when I was floating him, he opens to 2,400, and it folds to me in the cutoff. I've got the king of spades, jack of clubs. I think we can absolutely just fold this hand. You're probably supposed to fold it versus an early position open. But I do think this guy was opening a little too wide, and I could also justify in other ways continuing here. I can 3-bet. I decided to make the call, and I'm probably never supposed to have this hand when I flat call from the cutoff. King jack offsuit, heads up to the flop. It comes ace of diamonds, jack of diamonds, 9 of hearts. So I've got middle pair and no diamond. We both check. So he checks to me on this flop, and I did not take the bait. I just wanted to check behind. The turn comes the 8 of hearts, and he checks again. This time I think I have to bet, but small is okay. I just say 2K. I'm trying to get action from hands worse than second pair on this board. Villain calls, and I don't really know what to make of that. The river is the king of hearts, giving me 2 pair, and villain checks. I can't check this one back. I've got to bet for value now. I put in 5,000, and villain calls and shows me that I rivered him. He shows me the ace 10 offsuit, so I did river him and got paid. Later on, a bunch of good things happened. I cracked kings with ace 4 from the big blind versus the small blind. That was fun. I stole the blinds a few times, and then when the average stack was 86,000, I had 80,000 at the close of registration after dinner when the blinds went up to 1K and 1,500. Actually, let me correct myself because they don't do dinner on day one of Venetian tournaments ever. Then I cracked the Argentinian guys' aces with my pocket tens, and things just kind of continued to go well for me. I beat ace king with pocket queens. At that point, I was 3 for 7 in significant coin flips this summer, which is something that I keep track of on my Substack, which you can join, by the way, and follow all of my poker adventures, even well after the WSOP is over, just by clicking the link in the description. It's absolutely free, and I think you'll enjoy reading it. Some more good things happened. There was a playful, older Chinese gentleman, and he opened from middle position, and the one seat, who is that Argentinian player I keep mentioning, he makes the call. The small blind folds. So yeah, the Argentinian guy was on the button. I'm in the big blind, and I've got the 9 of hearts, 8 of diamonds. So it's been raised and called. Do I want to see a flop? I think I do. It's only 2,000 more. So the blinds were 1K and 1,500. He made it 35. So now the pot's worth fighting for. I'm going to call and try to flop something with my 9 of hearts, 8 of diamonds. And the flop is 8, 6, 4, rainbow. And I've got top pair and some backdoor possibilities here. I check. The original raiser bet 6,000, which is a pretty sizable bet, folded back to the Argentinian player who calls. And now I don't know what to do with top pair. I guess I'm just going to call and see if we can pick up equity on the turn. So I make the call for 6K. And now talk about equity. How about a 9 of diamonds for top 2 pair? And I check. The Chinese guy bets 12,500, and the Argentinian guy finally folds. I slow play, even though I'm pretty sure my hand is good here a lot. I make the call. The river's the queen of spades, which does complete Jack 10. Otherwise, if I was ahead on the turn, I'm pretty much always ahead on this river. I check one more time. Villain checks behind, and I roll over my 2 pair. He shows pocket jacks. So this continued a trend where late in the day, I was really cracking big hands with not so big hands. And as a result, when the average stack was 94,500, I had 243,000 in my stack. Not long after that, I got into a huge pot versus the Argentinian guy with my pocket queens versus his aces. And towards the end of the day, when the average stack was 105,000, I still had 145,000. So nowhere near where I was earlier, but yeah, I mean, some annoying things are going to happen, right? So that's just the way it is. Let's see, late in the day, I folded pocket 10s to a 3-bet. I had not been the original raiser. I just threw my hand away, and turned out the other players had queens and aces. And then I started feeling my opponents tightening up towards the end of the day. And so I started speeding a little bit, opening hands like 8-6 offsuit, 9-8 from early position, because it seemed like everybody was really just trying to make it to day 2. And as a result, I picked up a ton of these small pots and actually ended the day. I had 198,000, a little down from my peak of 243 or whatever it was, but still, you got to be happy with that. It was about 40% above average. I think the average stack was 125 or something like that. So I was doing really well in this thing at that point. So it was time to go home and try to get some rest for day 2, which we will discuss very soon in a future episode. But that's going to do it for this episode. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm also going to be hosting the TPE free roll this coming Sunday, July 20th. And I hope to see some of you there. Follow me on twitch.tv/Clayton Comic. And for everyone here at Tournament Poker Edge, I'm Clayton Fletcher. Thank you so much for listening.
I wanna hold them like they do in Texas Plays. Fold them, let them hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. Luck and intuition, play the cards with babes to start. And after she's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on her heart.